Very excited to be joined on the program by the Executive Director of Color of Change PAC, Arisha Hatch. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very excited to have you on, in particular with just a few days left until the election. I've been very curious with 2020 being the way it is, this campaign being the way it is. I can imagine that Color of Change has probably been quite busy for a lot of different reasons. In terms of the election, what are some of the focuses throughout this year of the organization? What have you all been working on?
Well, there's obviously so much uncertainty around this election, as well as so much disinformation targeting Black voters. We saw that very quickly very clearly in 2016, how Black voters were being targeted in different ways than they have been in the past. And so our focus has really been on one, being in contact with our more than 7 million members across the country, making sure that they're prepared and ready and have all the information that they need in order to participate, but also having our members become volunteers and talk to low propensity, irregular Black voters about what's at stake in this upcoming election.
I'm really curious about that because I know obviously you're 100% right. There's been historically tons of misinformation. This year has been no different. But we also know that the pandemic has thrown the election into a bit of chaos. And the pandemic has affected Black Americans disproportionately. So as the organization is talking, as you said, to low propensity voters, is concerns around the pandemic, whether it's safe to vote, those sorts of things, is that something that you're hearing a lot about?
Absolutely. And I think the thing that we saw very early on is that although the pandemic should have been leveraged in order to open more polling centers, in order to make it easier for people to vote, we actually saw right-wing people shutting down more ballot centers, pushing back against vote by mail as a means to vote. And so we've seen this sort of like crackdown that we think really furthers and enables the level of obstacles and hurdles that have been placed in front of Black people in order to participate. And so what we've been really preaching over the last several weeks is for people to have a plan, to vote early if possible, but to vote in whatever way they feel comfortable in this upcoming election, given the swirling disinformation that's happening in their communities and online.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I don't know if it's possible to really get a read on it. But in terms of access to the vote, I mean, as you point out, there's been a ton of voter suppression. There's gonna be attempts at voter intimidation from these poll watchers throughout the country. But we also have in some states expanded access to vote by mail and early voting. Overall, with all of that, the suppression as well as some of the limited measures that have been put in place because of the pandemic, how would you compare the access and ease of voting in this election to past elections?
I actually think that Black folks have experienced this before, and it might feel new to some of our allies in the same way that, folks are experiencing what's happening in terms of like criminal justice and police violence and new ways, like it feels new to a set of people. I actually feel like some of those barriers have been spread to others. This conversation about vote by mail, which has been perpetuated by Trump, causing insecurity. As we surveyed and polled our members, many of them had a deep distrust for vote by mail, and yet signed up for it because they feel like it's a civic duty. Many of our members and the people that we're talking to have a deep distrust of government's ability to actually make the changes that they want to see, but believe that it's their civic duty and their responsibility to participate. And so in a lot of ways, it's not new. And yet we want people to be as safe as possible. We know that the pandemic has had disproportionate effects on our community. And so we're just really encouraging folks to make a plan to vote early. If they trust the vote by mail system, to vote by mail or by absentee, depending on their state's laws. But yeah, I think that's the state we're sort of in.
You mentioned a couple of things there. So obviously you have the election, and then you also mentioned criminal justice, and there have been protests for something like 8 months now. Obviously, when you're talking with these voters, is there a connection between those two things? Are people seeing their either participation or not participating in the election as sort of an outgrowth of that's been all of the protests and all of the discussion and all of that throughout this year? Is that a thing that people are linking in their minds?
Absolutely, but they're making the connection between the local races that they want to focus on. There are a set of district attorney races or city council races that they really believe, once you talk to them about the fact that these races exist, they believe that these public officials at the local level could actually make the changes that they want to see. At the national level, at the federal level, what folks are really talking about is the culture that's been enabled, the racist, sort of sexist culture that's being enabled by Trump and other right-wing rhetoric. And what we're hearing from folks is that they understand that we can't make the changes that we want to see with that culture in place. They don't necessarily believe that Biden or Senator Harris are, the most radical folks, as like the right wing would like to term them, or the folks that are really going to make significant change in this issue. But they do understand that the environment and the vibe, sort of, I think is how one of our members explained it, the vibe has to be different in order to make the shifts that we need to see.
Yeah, you mentioned the racist rhetoric, and the closing appeal in terms of commenting on race from the Trump administration has been an interesting one. Just I believe it was yesterday they deployed Jared Kushner to talk about how he seemed to be implying that Black Americans don't want to be successful, and they need to change that. You had Trump at the last debate, his last direct appeal to the American people, saying that he's the least racist person in the room. I guess they think this strategy could work. Obviously, I'm white, but it doesn't seem to me that would be appealing if I weren't. I don't know. Do you disagree? Is there anything in there that hypothetically could help them make inroads amongst Black voters?
I've seen zero evidence to believe that the Trump campaign is actively courting Black voters. I believe that the Trump campaign is actively working to deter Black voters, as we saw more evidence from several news reports in the last several weeks. They're working to convince Black folks that the Democratic Party isn't for them, that their vote won't count or doesn't matter. But really, all of their messaging around Black people and Black voters, I believe, is being targeted towards white swing voters, and really dog whistling towards certain biases. I watched the Jared Kushner interview as well, and what I saw as a person that was on message for his campaign. He wasn't speaking off the cuff. These were talking points. This is what the campaign and the Trump administration believes about Black people. And it is consistent with their approach and talking about Black folks. I don't see an active recruitment effort. I see an effort to depress us and to make a set of swing white working class voters afraid of us, or feel like they are not racist by continuing to vote for Trump.
Yeah, I felt the same way while watching the Jared Kushner interview. It felt like it wasn't an appeal to Black voters. It felt like it was an appeal to white conservatives who want to believe that it's not government policy that's been responsible for, economic inequity. It's some sort of psychological or moral flaw or something like that. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.